Hello, everyone. Welcome to my first podcast episode. My name is Sergeant Denarius Mitchell. I am an Air Force and Space Force officer recruiter for Southern Texas and Western Louisiana. Tonight, I have Lieutenant Caron with me. She is a current student at UIW, and she was selected for the HPSP scholarship in regards to medical school last year. You want to go ahead and introduce yourself, ma'am?
Sure. Hi, I'm Sarah Caron. I'm a second lieutenant and I'm a first year medical student at UIW. I have been in HPSP since about May last year. And so far, I've had a really good experience and I'm still trucking along in my medical career, still going through my first year.
So once again, ma'am, I really appreciate you taking time out of your night to just answer these questions. My whole thought process is just make it available to everyone to have those easy answers and make them feel more confident about applying for the Air Force's scholarship. So the first question I have to ask everyone, ma'am, who contacts my office, why medicine? Why did Sarah wake up one day and said, hey, I want to go to school for 15 years and I want to be a physician? So why did you choose to become a doctor?
So I chose medicine because probably ever since about seventh grade, I remember like we started learning about like the human body, like all the different human systems or the body systems. And I just remember being so fascinated by everything, just like kind of learning how the different body systems work and stuff like that. And it was like very like superficial at that point because, I was in like seventh grade, so it wasn't like super deep or anything, but it was just really interesting. And I was like, this is so cool. And then I actually had a friend whose dad was a doctor. And I just like, from there, I was just like, this is really cool. Like, I want to learn more about the body. I want to learn how these things work. And then the older that I got, I kind of started to kind of realize that like not everybody has access to healthcare and stuff like that. Like, for example, my grandma and like my mom are from Mexico, so they didn't have they didn't have healthcare available to them because they didn't have any money. They're definitely underserved. And they just kind of got into this mindset that you don't go to the doctor until something hurts, until something's unbearable. And I just, that's not the mindset you should have. You should want to keep yourself healthy. You want to go to the doctor so that you can prevent something big from happening to where you have to go to the emergency room and pay like this crazy medical bill. And so that's another thing that kind of my grandma's health definitely also kind of got me interested in becoming a physician as well. And then even more so to pursue a DO because they have like a very, they have a lot of tenants that are centered around like keeping their your patients healthy and making sure that like if everything's healthy, then all of your different body systems should work together cohesively to make sure that you don't continue to have any pain or anything.
Got you. And the same for me, ma'am. I grew up in Mississippi. When I hurt myself, we just rub some dirt on it. We're not going to the hospital. I can't afford that medical bill. But kudos for you, ma'am. Saying that seventh grade, you wanted to be a physician. You actually stuck with that plan and achieved your goal. You're almost there. For me in seventh grade, I wanted to be a football player. So I didn't achieve my goal, but hey, I'm in the Air Force. It's the second best thing in the world to be. So why the HPSP, ma'am? So what made you realize that, hey, the Air Force's scholarship is something that could benefit you?
So when I first like learned about HPSP, I believe I was in high school and my dad was like telling me, because at that point I was like, oh, I want to go to medical school. Like it was like I didn't want to do anything else.
Yeah.
And my dad was like, oh, if you go to medical school, you should do like this program. He didn't actually know what it was called, but he was like, oh, join the military,
Yeah.
we'll pay for everything. And then like you just have to like serve so much time in the military afterwards. And like, back then I was like, I don't want to join the military. Like, I don't want to get yelled at. Like, I don't want to be shot at. Like,
Full metal jacket, like everyone thinks. Yes.
yeah, that's what I was expecting. And that's like around the time I first saw that movie too. So I was like, oh my goodness. And then like my friend's dad, who's a doctor, and he's also, I consider him my mentor because I've known him since I was like in sixth grade. And he pretty much like has always guided me. And I was talking to my friends about that, and he heard me and was like, no, like all of my friends who joined the military and medical school, like they have it so good. Like, I don't think it's like what you think it is. They're not going to be screaming at you. They're not going to treat you like they treat enlisted, 18-year-olds coming in to boot camp. He's like, it's not like that. Like, you're going to be an officer And he was like,
Yes.
they're gonna pay for everything. Like, you're not gonna have to worry about a thing. And if you want, you can stay in for 20 years. And, like, you're gonna, like, pretty much, like, not have to worry about anything. And then he was like, I came out of school with so much debt, and I had to, like, worry about that. And, like, my friends didn't have to worry about, how they were gonna pay for stuff. And they had great experiences in the military. And then they retired, and then they're still practicing. And he's like, you have to remember, like, that's only going to be so much time of your life, and you're still going to be able to practice, because people don't retire till they're like in their, like, maybe mid 60s, and I'm sure plenty
Yeah.
of people don't even retire that early. So I don't know, he just really put it into perspective for me, and I was expecting to get screamed at and stuff, and he
Yes.
was like, just pretty much reassured me that that wasn't going to happen. And so from then on out, I was like, okay, I'm convinced. I'm gonna do my research, um and try to figure out, like, what it is that I need to do to make this happen.
I'm actually glad he was able to be that voice of comfort for you, because I hear it all the time, like, hey, Sir Mitch, I want to do a scholarship. I'm afraid that you guys are going to have me jumping out of helicopters. You guys are going to be screaming at me. I'm like, no, no, no. You're an officer. You're going to be a physician. You are going to be living the life of comfort. So just keep that in mind. So thank you for being that voice of validation for me. Like, hey, Sir Mitchell is telling the truth. So my next question for you. So do you think with being a military physician, Air Force physician, that you would have a leg up on someone who's going directly into the civilian sector to practice medicine?
I think I do, mostly from, like, the feedback that I've heard from some of my professors who also went through their training in the Air Force, or maybe not the Air Force. Most of them were Air Force, but in the military in general. And they kind of always talk, like, have such positive things to say. Like, they always say, like, you have, like, the best training that you're going to get in any of these residency programs in the Air Force. And, like, it sounds like it's always so structured, and like, you just get so much more experience, especially even the ones who didn't get to choose their residency coming right out of medical school, the ones who did like a flight surgeon or GMO for however long. They tell me, like, I'm so glad that I did that, because I got so much hands-on experience, and I got so much experience before I even went into my specialty. And they're like, I'm a better physician for it. And then they continued to practice for however long after they got out, and now they're teaching me. So I feel like they're just kind of passing their wisdom on.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So one thing that we always hear is that, oh, well, will I make less money coming in? I always tell people, so yes, you make a little bit less money, but think about the long game. You have no student loans. You will catch that physician up in pay. When they go directly to the civilian sector, guess what? They immediately have having to pay off their student loans, or they have to see so many patients in a day, have to work so many hours to get paid by the hospital. For you, ma'am, you're going to get federal holidays off. If the hospital is closed at 4 o'clock, guess what? Lieutenant Caron, a Captain Caron at that time, is going to be home with her family. So that's one of the perks, in my opinion, of going through the scholarship. No student loans. The next question, ma'am. So, how was the application process for you? Because I know you had a pretty amazing recruiter, but how was the application process for you?
Yeah, for sure. I did have an amazing recruiter. I haven't heard anyone else have, like, nearly as positive an experience as
Thank you,
me.
thank you. That's me,
So
by the way, in case you're wondering.
yeah. And yeah, I had a really good experience. I literally got into med school at the end of February, actually, like, probably like this time last year, now that I'm thinking
Yeah.
about it. And then I think I literally contacted your office like a couple days later. And you contacted me right away and pretty much, like, talked to me. You're like, this is what we have to offer. This is how it's going to work when you get out of med school. These are the options that you have. And you're just, like, very informative and just really helpful, and also always available, which I really appreciated, because sometimes people will ask their recruiters questions and it takes them like a week to get back to them. And I have had some friends who have had that experience in, like, a different branch, and I'm like, well, I can't speak for that branch, but as far as I can tell, the Air Force has been, like, very helpful. And especially you in particular, like, you just were always, like, anytime I had any questions, just like for filling out the paperwork for, like, the preliminary process, I had just, like, the simplest questions, and you texted me back right away, or you called me, or whatever it was, and you always had an answer for me very quickly. And if you didn't have the answer, you'd go find out and get back to me in a very timely manner, which I always appreciate, because I know that some of this can be a little bit time sensitive, especially if it's competitive. You don't want to put it off to the last minute. And I believe with everything that happened after going, like putting in my application, going through MEPS, all that fun stuff, I believe I heard back by April 1st. Like, I think you literally called me on April Fool's Day. And I was like, this isn't a joke, is it? Just kidding.
No, you're
But
fine.
yeah, it went really well. So
Awesome, awesome. So, in regards to answering questions, ma'am, you don't have to thank me for that. I understand this is a big, commitment for you guys. You're saying like, hey, I'm gonna join the Air Force as a physician for 4 years. So I have to make sure that you guys are knowledgeable on why you're doing this. You are able to make that decision with your friends, family, and you are 100% behind that because I'm rushing you like, no, ma'am, give it to me now. You're not going to feel confident and you may back out. So I'm very big on making sure that you fully understand the paperwork and what to expect with the scholarship. So next question, ma'am. So how was the first couple of weeks transitioning from a civilian into medical school? How was that for you?
So I like had literally just stopped working. I was working previously at HEB, so it was a big change for me.
Best grocery store in the world. Sorry.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. No store does more. And so it was actually not bad at all. I think, I don't know how most medical schools do this, but definitely the first 2 weeks of medical school were pretty relaxed. And I was like, wow, like I have so much free time. Like, I'm already done with my schoolwork. Like I already reviewed everything. Like now I can just like relax. And I had plenty of time to like work out and, like see like talk to my family, hang out with my family, my boyfriend and all this stuff. And I was like, just like, so like surprised. But like they definitely eased it in for us. So it wasn't like all at once. They were like just throwing a bunch of information at us. I still had quite a bit of work to do, but it wasn't to the extent that I thought it was going to be. And then about 2 weeks in, they were like, okay, now we're going to hit you hard. And that was definitely stressful just because like I wasn't expecting it. And like even like the second years warned me, so I should have been expecting it, but I was just like, oh, like it's fine. Like I'm just gonna keep my study schedule. It's gonna be fine. But then I was a little bit stressed out at first, and then you just kind of start to like you just learn to adapt, to be honest, and you kind of just start figuring out like what study schedule works for you or what techniques work for you. Like maybe you're a morning person, so you need to do your studying in the morning, or maybe you're kind of a night owl. So maybe it's easier for you to get the bulk of your work done in the evening, or something like that. And then you kind of start to figure out like a good schedule for you. Like, okay, that way you can still take care of yourself, because at the end of the day, you can't just study and you cannot do
Exactly.
anything else, because
Burn
you're
out.
you're gonna burn out and you're gonna just be like you're just not gonna have a good time. So it's definitely important to start finding a routine early on, and also just learning to be adaptive. Like you just honestly have to roll with the punches, especially being in med school during a pandemic is very different than I would have expected my experience to be. And it's still been a good experience, but there's definitely been a lot of like unexpected things that happen, and you just kind of have to learn to be adaptive. And honestly, you have to be like that in medicine anyway. So it's better to learn to be adaptive now than later. But it was definitely a little bit of a tricky transition, but at the end of the day, I'm glad that I went through it, glad that I kind of freaked out a little and then realized that I was freaking out for no reason, because you're going to get through it and you're going to be fine.
Got you. So I know you only been in there for a couple of months. What do you love and hate about medical school so far? And don't worry, UIW is not going to see this.
Okay. So far, what I love about medical school is that I'm actually finally getting to study what I enjoy. Because, in undergrad, you have to take all these classes, and a
Yes.
lot of them are just things that like you don't want to take. Like I had to take computer science, and I was like, why do I need to take this? And to
Exactly.
this day, I have not used any of the skills from that class. So, and it's just a requirement, and that's what you have to do. But like you sometimes just don't put in as much effort into some of those classes that you don't like. And then whenever I would finally get to do like the cool like microbiology classes and whatever, and even though they're hard, like you still enjoy it. So you at least enjoy what you're studying and what you're dedicating so much time to. So I have to say that one thing that I really enjoy is like just finally getting to learn about the stuff that like I'm interested in. And then I'm just really interested in infectious diseases, and like I don't know, I like learning about bugs, like different viruses or diseases or like parasites. I don't know why. I'm super interested in that. So anytime that I hear about it, like, I'm just like tune in and yeah, that's just my jam. And so whenever I do get to learn about that stuff, it just makes me happy. Like I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be. But then the things that the only thing I really say I don't like is just having to study all the time and maybe like not always fully understanding everything, especially because I think like everybody uses this analogy that when you're in med school, it's like drinking out of a fire hose, because they're literally giving you so much information and it's almost impossible to know it all, and to know it all to like an extent that you're like an expert on it or something, because we have such a short period of time to learn some of this information that that's just the way it is. And like everyone has told me, like, you just have to get used to feeling like that. But at the end of the day, like I'm still passing my exams. I'm still confident enough to be able to talk about something that I've learned. And, maybe I didn't completely master it, but, I still did learn it. And I walked away, with something. So
it's funny, ma'am, you said the whole fire hose. They tell you the same thing in recruiting school, like all the stuff about the Air Force. And just like people like you expect me to know everything about the Air Force. I'm like, it's too much information, but I try my best. And that's the next question, ma'am. So if you don't mind sharing with the people that's watching this video, what is the financial benefits that you are getting from the health professional scholarship?
So I'm getting a stipend every 2 weeks. I can't remember how much like it is after taxes, but I'm sure you know the exact amount.
It was $24.56 before taxes. So there you go.
Okay. So it's still a pretty good amount. I get it every 2 weeks, like split in half pretty much. And then on top of that, I did get the signing bonus. So I got like, I think it was like 15 something after taxes, which is still a lot of money. Like I don't think I've ever gotten $1,500 or $15,000 in one sitting. Like I was like so surprised. But I pretty much am able to use my stipend to like pay for any of my living expenses. So I'm able to pay for this apartment with honestly like one check, and then I have like extra money afterwards. And then I'm able to pay my car insurance, my phone bill. I actually paid off my car with the bonus, which is really nice because now I don't have to worry about making that extra payment every single month. And then I can pay my electricity, and maybe every once in a while I get to treat myself or whatever. I get to, splurge, and it's just really nice because like I don't have to worry about like where my next paycheck's coming from. I also don't have to, worry about like how many loans I'm accruing. And I don't have to be, don't get me wrong, I still make a budget, but I don't feel like I'm super tight or I don't feel like I'm struggling. And
paycheck to paycheck. Yes.
Yeah, I'm not living paycheck to paycheck, and which is really nice. And I have been able to save a lot of money as well. Like from my bonus, I was able to put a lot of that money away, which I think is going to be helpful either on like a rainy day or just like in the long run. If I, it's just always good to have some savings. And, when I was in undergrad, I had to pay my own way through undergrad, and that was extremely stressful. I was a bio major going to school full time. And then I was like trying to keep up with like pretty much everything that you need to do to like get into med school. So I was volunteering and, just doing like extracurriculars and shadowing. And then I was also working 30 hours a week just so I could pay my tuition on time and I could pay all of my bills. And it was just really stressful. And it doesn't sound like a lot, especially after working like a 40-hour week or a 50-hour week, you're like, oh, like that's not that bad. But whenever you're going to school full time and you're working so much, it can get really stressful. So, and I was just always worried about money when I was in undergrad. So it's just kind of been a relief to like not have to worry about it for once.
Honestly, man, that what made your application super strong. You were a full-time student, you were working at HEB, and you still kept your grades up and you scored amazing on the MCAT. So in my opinion, that's what made your application so strong. And I wanted to make sure that we could get you this scholarship because you were showing me that you were hardworking, you were driven. I was like, let's do everything to get this young person a scholarship. I am not going to be the reason that she does not get this scholarship. The next question.
You're
very welcome, ma'am. The next question. So what would you say to someone who's on the fence about applying for this scholarship? Because it always has people always have hesitations. Oh, I'm never going to get to see my family again. Is it really worth it? Sign up for 4 years just to get my school paid for. What would you say to kind of, ease their mind about calling Sergeant Mitchell?
So I actually it's funny, I had this conversation with one of my fellow students recently, and I don't know if I convinced him, but it was definitely, he was like, that was a very compelling argument. But I'd say like, if you're interested, like you really just need to look at like the big picture. You're not going to have to worry about paying off your student loans, which I already have student loans, and it's not fun because like half the time you're paying interest anyway. Like you don't want to be spending all of your money towards that. And especially whenever it's like income based, like most of your money is going to go to that whenever you become a physician, which is just, I don't know, it's not fun. And you probably want to be worrying about other things by the time you get out of med school. You're like, want to worry about like buying a house or settling down and like starting a family or something. And whenever you're so worried about your finances, sometimes it's like hard to make that decision. And that's just something that like I really didn't want to have to worry about. And on top of that, you already have this student loan, and now you have to pay malpractice insurance too. And I've heard that like you spend so much time trying to pay for that your first couple of years as a physician that you're not even really benefiting from your paychecks at that point. And I know that, you shouldn't go into medicine for the money. Like if you do that, you're probably not going to be very happy because physicians work a lot. But I think that in the long run, if you think about it, you're only giving up 4 years of your life and your career, and not even really giving it up. Like it's going towards something that's going to benefit you. You're getting trained to be a physician. You're getting to see patients. It's not like you're literally, going out and fighting in combat and then you're still not even getting to train to be a physician. It's going to benefit you in the long run. And like when you really think about like how long you work as like an adult, that's such a small portion of your life and your career that I don't really see. Like you can see how quickly 4 years goes by when you're an undergrad, that like those years are going to fly by. You're not even going to notice it, And I just think that in the long run, it's a very small sacrifice, if you will, to do that. And even then you can stay in for 20 years and still practice after you're done. And you'll get the benefits of being in the military, which from what I hear sound pretty great. So, I just think that you have to really think a bit of it as like a big picture thing, that you're really only dedicating so much of your life to this. And honestly, anyone who is trying to go to medical school, you literally sacrifice your youth to go be a physician. So like what's 4 more years gonna do,
Thank you. It's only 4 years. It's the same thing as going through high school and college, and you do not have to worry about any student loan debt. For some reason, people think, oh my God, 4 years, I won't get to see my family. You guys are going to ship me off, so I'm going to be in combat. Like, no, you're joining the Air Force as a physician. You're going to be living a life of comfort, working in a nice clinic somewhere. So I'm glad that once again, you can just be that voice of validation that Sergeant Mitchell and any Air Force recruiter is telling them the truth. We're not going to train you as a physician and give you a weapon and have you start kicking in doors. But honestly, ma'am, that is all the questions that I have for you. I truly appreciate you taking time out once again to help educate people in Texas about the scholarship. Do you have any last words?
Let me think. I'd say that first of all, if you're going to join the military, Air Force is the best one. And I really only attest to that from, I really did like my own research because I was just trying to figure out like, more information about the HPSP, and then you're just making like an even greater resource for future students, which I think is awesome. Because I remember I told you that I had trouble finding information online.
Yes,
and I had found a blog, and pretty much the physician was just kind of breaking things down, and she was like very like not biased about it, but and at the end of the day, like in the Air Force, you're a doctor first, and that's important because that's what you're going to school for. That's what you're dedicating your youth to. That's what you've been working so hard for, probably, I don't know, like 12 plus years to be here. And so, you want to be doing what you truly want to do. So I'd say go Air Force if you can. And just like really think about the big picture at the end of the day, because if you've ever had to struggle with your finances, like it's just like such a relief to not like have that anxiety all the time. And I highly recommend. 10 out of 10 would recommend.
And who should they contact?
They should contact Sergeant Mitchell because he's the
Awesome.
best.
Thank you, ma'am. Enjoy the rest of your evening, ma'am. I continue to wish you well during medical school. You got this. You are the most, out of my 18 people who were selected last year, you were the most hardworking, driven. So I know you're going to succeed and be an amazing officer in the Air Force.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me.
Thank you, ma'am.